Hi, it's time for a mail call video. We just have two things today. This one, which is something I got off eBay recently, hence the eBay sticker or tape all over it. And I bought it because these don't come along very often, especially not in their original box. So this is an original box that contains two NuTone model 2024 inside remote intercom stations. And these would be the original, very first models of inside remote stations that NuTone ever made. And we'll see when these were made. Oh wait, it's a rough-in and a speaker assembly. Oh yeah, it's a inside remote speaker assembly with a box unit, which is the rough-in box. This is when the term rough-in was first used. And I've never actually seen any of these brand new in their box before. So you have a lot of cardboard. Here's an actual rough-in for 2024, brand new, never been used. Still has this cardboard that fits in there, and a little screw pack that contains two number 6-32 by 1 inch slotted round head screws for inside remote speaker. You'd be surprised how often people call and want to know either one, what's the size of the screws, or two, do you have any? And the size of the screws is something that I have a list for, and do I have any? Usually the answer is no. Screws are hard to come by because they always get thrown away. And here, wrapped up in a piece of, like what would be butcher paper probably, is a brand new NuTone 2024 inside remote speaker. This is the original style of the very first one. This one was made, I think, in January 6th of 1960. So it was 2 years after the introduction of the first NuTone intercom systems. And it has metal grill with these nice louvers on either side, and down the middle it's embossed and it says NuTone, volume control knob, and an intercom talk listen switch. It's a nice thing to have because there is more and more interest in people who want to do a new vintage installation, and of course you need remote speakers to make that happen. So we have a few of these now. Usually you need 4 or 5 at least for most people. It's interesting because back in the day, say in 1960 when this was made, you wouldn't see systems that had a large number of stations. Usually most houses had 4 maybe, and a door speaker or something like that, because it was a newer idea, so people's desires for a size of a system were much more modest. So this will go on the shelf and one day it'll find a home. The second item is packed really well, I think, in this big giant Panasonic fan box, which you can't hardly see, so maybe we'll just zoom out a little bit and make it easier for you to see. So this is another eBay purchase, and it came from a fella on eBay named Kevin. He seems like a good, conscientious kind of guy, good communication, all that good stuff that you don't usually get when you buy stuff on eBay. And lots of bubble wrap. He seems like a very conscientious kind of guy. Oh, since we're not in a big hurry today, I can take the bubble wrap and throw it on the floor. Looks like everything is wrapped up well and individually. Okay. So we'll take it all out first. Things falling out of the bubble wrap packages. And I think I know why that is. More and more and more. And then of course there's the main item. So a box goes over there on the floor. We'll start with this, because this is sort of the whole point. So this is a music and sound model MC500. And the MC500, as I understand it, took the place of the N440 or 443, 448, 440, which is the earlier model. And it took the place of the top of the line 6-wire mono systems of the day. The nice thing about all of this stuff is that it was a system that was removed, and it includes, as I've talked about before, a wall housing, there's a chime module, a transformer, and a bunch of remote stations, which is very good. This is a very similar layout to the N440, which I did a repair video and an overview video on, and I'll put links to that up here so you can watch that. This is probably, I think this is from the mid 90s. And I suppose that we can open it up here real quick because it's only 2 screws. Of course, this is not a black and gold model, which is more of an 80s thing. This was all white when it was new. Unfortunately, some of it has yellow, so we have sort of a two-tone thing going on right now. But it may be a candidate to try re-whitening on. This was purchased not for repair or for repair maybe, but not for resale. This is one of my what I call educational models. This way I can learn more about these and figure out what goes wrong with them and what typically needs to be done, so that if somebody has one and it needs to be repaired, we can do that for them. So here's a wall housing, which is always a good thing to have. I can use that to make a mock-up installation. And let's see if we have a date code on here. This was made in 1991. So it's a kind of similar layout, I think, to the N440. Probably a little more compact in its design. It looks like on this side, looks like power supply and probably amplifier. This side would be the radio tuner and what Music and Sound refers to as the computer board, which is what the keypad is connected to. And then you've got the audio intercom board here and the switchboard down here in the front of it, which is where all these controls are. It looks like a similar evolutionary design of the N440 that I repaired. Probably a little bit more of a modular design where this is a module and this is a module and these are boards and those kind of things. So it's a very good thing to have. I'm sure I will learn a lot from that to go along with it. We have the all-important terminal board, which the master station plugs into. It's got a bent pin there, but that's not a big deal. One of the nice things about these designs is that they use these big colored multi-wired connections, and on the terminal board you've got these pin sockets that everything plugs into. So you grab the white one and you plug it in here where it says white, plugs in like that, easy, ready to go. And then these are all the terminals for all of the wires that come from the remote stations. This was also available in a stereo version, which I think is an MC800. And if it was a stereo version, it would have probably a different power supply, different amplifier, hence the modular design, because you want to make it an MC800. You just take this out and put a different one in when you manufacture it. And the terminal board has extra terminals here, which have no connections soldered onto the board, because this would be for the second channel in an MC800. And in fact, if you look right here, it says MC800. So these are unpopulated spots. Up here we have master speakers MC800 only, because I believe an MC800 does not have a speaker cone built into the master station, because if it's stereo you would have to have 2, and there isn't really enough room to do that. So they don't put a speaker in the master. This extra space would probably be used for the larger power supply amplifier module that would go here. Again, a clever design. And then you would have speakers that are connected to, there would be more knobs down here. The volume controls for the master station speakers, which would be connected to this unit, get connected here. So terminal board is always a good thing to have. It also includes a C3 chime module, and this is sort of the original. This is 12 of 93, so maybe this was on the shelf for a while. And here we have a Music and Sound chime module. This is sort of one of the more original style chime modules that they made. This uses a lot of discrete components, no microprocessor, no microcontroller, none of that kind of nonsense, just a board with a lot of discrete components. So if anything goes wrong with this, it should be totally repairable. And that is one of the things I'm going to put some dedicated effort into, is I'm sort of collecting different versions of Music and Sound chime modules to learn how to fix them and have the parts on hand, because if they're like NuTone chime modules, they blow up all the time because of lightning and things like that. So somebody's got to be able to fix them. That's going to be me. here we have the power transformer for it. It's got sort of a classic music and sound. It's a TE3 transformer. It's got plug connection here on the end. Now I believe, I'll have to do a little research on this. Previously I also made a video about a music and sound N350, which is earlier than this, but I believe that these share the same transformer. So that always works out good. Got to have a transformer to power it up. This is an in-wall volume control, missing its mounting plate. This particular installation had a whole raft, like a dozen 8-inch round ceiling speakers, which I did not buy because I didn't really want them. So there's a music and sound door station, kind of ratty looking. A container full of screws, which I'm not even going to open up right now because I don't really need to. This is interesting. One of the things that he did to get all this in a single box was he removed the circuit boards. So this is an inside wall remote, and what you would see if it was mounted on the wall of your house is this. The knob is probably in the container with all the screws and stuff. Volume control and your 4 intercom buttons. The way this is made is the circuit board sits perpendicular to the faceplate, so it sticks off the back here a lot, which takes up a lot of room in the box when you pack everything up. So he took the screws out so he could fold it like this and make it smaller so he could get more in one box, which is fine. The nice thing about these, this was always a good idea, I thought, something also that I thought NuTone should have done is, so this is a wall remote control. This would be connected to a ceiling speaker up there on the ceiling, and then you can adjust the volume of the ceiling speaker, and you have intercom buttons. Now, NuTone made wall remote controls similar to this, where it would be a wall control with a ceiling speaker up there, but when you try to use the intercom in NuTone's layout, it's difficult because the ceiling speaker could be a large family room or something, and the ceiling speaker could be in the center of the room or off in a corner somewhere. So if you were standing at this station, you could literally be 8 or 10 feet away from the speaker. And then if you try to use the intercom, you have to push the intercom buttons and yell up towards the speaker over there, and that doesn't really work very well. So it's really kind of silly. What Music and Sound did, which I thought was always a really good idea, is in the wall remote control, this station, there's a little tiny speaker here. This is like a 2.5-inch speaker, and this is for intercom only. No music plays through this or anything like that. This is just for communication. You control the music on the ceiling speaker here, but when you operate the intercom buttons, you speak into the speaker in this station, so you're standing right in front of it, just like a standard wall station. So your communication is not as compromised. It was always a good design. I thought something that NuTone probably should have done also, but they didn't. So that's a good thing, interesting thing to have. He did send a bunch of wall remotes. I'm not sure what this is exactly, so let's open it up and see. So this is the drop can that goes into the master station wall housing for the transformer, and this is a rough-in box for the door speaker, which will probably come in handy somewhere along the line. And then there's a bunch of inside remote stations. This one's kind of ratty. Maybe this was mounted outside. This is similar to, well, he did the same thing. He disconnected the board so he could lay it flat so it would really sit like that. This is an inside remote. It's pretty dirty, so maybe this was mounted outside, or maybe that's the way they all are. I got the remotes along with the master because there's another one. If we're going to start working on these you have to have remote stations. What we do is you take your transformer and you take your terminal board and a remote, you make a test setup. So when one of these comes in, it needs to be worked on, you have something that's quick and easy you can plug the master into to see what is and isn't working and how well it's working or not working. It's nice to have the spare parts also because sometimes people need things. Apparently, I would guess that these were mostly white. If you look at the back side of the grill, they're not a bright white, they're just sort of your average white, but they have the same problems that NuTone has where the buttons and the knobs and things discolor some. So there also will be testing to see how well the re-whitening works on these. If we take this off, you can maybe see here the part that's yellowed and the part that was concealed where it was back inside the faceplate is still white, so you get a better idea of how much they have yellowed. But I would imagine that the re-whitening of these probably would work just as well. I've done a couple newer ones than this and it seems to work out pretty well. So it's a big pile of stuff. I guess we'll have to open up the screws after all. He did a very nice job packaging everything. He was very concerned about everything getting here in one piece. Oh, all right. So I don't know what this is. This is some kind of big, massive toggle switch. It's got all kinds of contacts on the back. That's not a music and sound thing. I don't know what that's for exactly. Then there are a whole bunch of wall remote controls. There are the mounting plates. These are just standard single gang switch plates with a hole in the middle. So, but the volume controls on the back could come in handy because they're the same volume controls that are used on the remote speaker. So if you've got bad volume control somewhere, I've got some spares. And then there's knobs and screws and washers and all kinds of good stuff in there. So that'll all get put into a plastic bag and into a tub marked as music and sound, screws and knobs. How about that? So I know where they all are. That's the mail call for today. Just two things today because we went through a whole bunch of stuff on the last one because, you know, we get hammered from corporate upstairs about all the boxes that pile up. So we have to stay on top of it. We don't want to get another memo about it or anything like that. So I hope you found this interesting and maybe for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.